They can't be replaced. They can't be elected. They're in for life. And that, my friends, is a good thing. Okay. Number 3. And this was a silly story. And it's a silly story that I still had to read. And it just goes to, I think this is a good example of how ridiculous and how silly we've become on this whole justice thing. Okay. The whole term of, and I'll use the term social justice. Now, who can be against social justice? Think about it. Just by definition of the words, social justice. We socially need to be society that shows justice to all. Who's against that? Who could be against civil rights? Okay? Who could be against that? I mean, are you against civil rights? Do you think people, just because of the color of their skin, should be treated differently? I don't think many people truly believe that. Some do. More than I'd like to think do, okay? Who is against fair and equal treatment for everybody? Not many people are. But then you get the people who take it to the nth degree. And the most ridiculous example of this happened in the UK. And in the UK, hate speech is against the law. Now, again, and I've mentioned this before, to say that they have the same freedoms in the UK that they have here, they don't. You cannot say certain things about certain people, or you go to jail. Okay? In this country, you can say whatever you want just so you don't slander them. In the UK, you cannot speak negatively against somebody in many ways, or it's considered hate speech, and you can go to jail for it. Well, there's a professor. He's Dr. Josh Milburn. Actually, 2 of them, Dr. Josh Milburn and Dr. Alasdair Cochrane, and they're at the University of Sheffield. Okay, and they published a document, and these are both doctors. Okay, PhDs, not MDs, but they're doctors. They're smart guys. Okay, and they have a proposal that was published in the Oxford Journal of Legal Studies that would prevent hate speech against dogs, cats, farm animals, and seagulls. That's right. They published a paper in the Oxford Journal of Legal Studies that would make speaking poorly of cats, dogs, farm animals, even seagulls, it would safeguard the rights of those animals. Okay? Now, these doctors said it would be hate speech to say the lives of a non-native species matters less than that of a native one. They say it would be impractical to censure wounding words only if they actually wound. And they also added that it would mean that even the worst instances of hate speech would be permissible if no one was hurt by what was said. In other words, you can't hurt their feelings. And the paper adds that some animals do seem to have their social conscience eroded because of their awareness of the risk of violence. For example, they said game animals and companion animals, they've been attacked by hate speech, and it affects them. It hurts their feelings because they now believe that they're at risk of violence. Friends, this is silly beyond repose. This is the silliest thing I've ever heard until I read something tomorrow. And I only mentioned this. First of all, I read it because of a short article. It was about 2 paragraphs long out of the UK Sun, which has some funny stuff. But it's kind of how we've become. It's kind of the society that we've become. And to say that it should be against the law to speak poorly of an animal because their feelings could be hurt is ridiculous. Now, should we ever speak poorly of a person in order to hurt their feelings? No, we shouldn't, but it shouldn't be against the law. Should we give reparations to a certain group, class, or race of people because they've been treated poorly in the past. Of course not. It's ridiculous to think that. Now, that's not to say we should turn our back on it. That's not to say that we shouldn't look at this. And I'll give an example of the earlier this month, we had the anniversary of the Tulsa riots, where a group of white Oklahomans went into a prospering middle to upper middle class black area, and they burned it down. And it was just because of racism and jealousy is why it was. Now, I never studied that in school. We never talked about that story. I have just heard about that recently, like in the last 3 or 4 years. Now, the fact that a story like that was not covered in our history books, I think we need to change that. That needs to be covered because that's a piece of our history. We shouldn't gloss over it. But by the same token, we shouldn't say, okay, Whitey, your people with the same color skin as you did something bad 100 years ago to people with the same color skin as me, so we need to do something about that, and you need to give me some money. That's ridiculous. If plaintiff A is harmed by defendant B, then they go to court, and if B has harmed A, they can take them to court. If somebody with the same color skin of A harmed B or the other way around, you can't take them to court. That's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I think we need to look at this whole race thing like this dopey story out of the UK Sun, because it really has nothing to do with animals having their feelings hurt. If you think you should make it against the law to speak poorly of an animal or say bad things about an animal, friend, you are ridiculous beyond repose. You are just ridiculous. And you can take that a step or two further. Common sense is what solves most problems. And in race relations, and I'm going to get feedback on this, hopefully more positive than negative, but in race relations, the goal should be treat everybody the same, regardless of race, sex, color, creed, national origin. That's the law, by the way. You need to treat everybody the same. You cannot discriminate because of race, sex, color, creed, national origin. That's how the law is read. Now, if you say we need to do this for this group of people because of the color of their skin, by definition, that's against the law. And you can't say it's to make things equal. It's not to say so we bring up everybody. It's not to say because everybody needs to be the same. Everybody's not the same. Nobody is the same. I will never make the money that anybody who's played more than 2 or 3 years in the NBA has made. I will never make that kind of money, and neither will you. And the vast majority of people in the NBA are black. 12% of the population of this country is black. If you're going to make things truly fair, should maybe only 12% of people in the NBA be black? Of course not. That's ridiculous. Why are more than 12% of people in the NBA black? Because it just so happens that more than 12% more than 12% of the players who play basketball play good enough to be in the NBA. Same thing. Less than 12% of the people who in Major League Baseball are black, African American. That's because, well, maybe they're all playing basketball and football. I don't know. But the best players play for the team. That's how sports works. That's how life should work. We shouldn't say this percentage of doctors need to be that, or this percentage of teachers need to be that. Nobody should be discriminated against because of the color of their skin. But that goes both ways. It goes both ways as well. And this story out of the UK Sun talks about how silliness this woke society is. You can't say anything that's going to even harm the psyche or hurt the feelings of an animal. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's hard to listen to comedians anymore because comedians can't say bad things about people or they get canceled. Friends, that's what makes comedy funny. Goofing on somebody. Hate speech is one thing. Being hateful is one thing. Cracking a joke is another. So there you have it. The four things that I found this week in the news that are the microcosm of our society. And we can look at them. We should look at those things and find out what the problem is and what the solution to fix the problem that is addressed should be. And I still believe, and I will always believe, I hope I always believe, that in a country full of smart people, which is what we are here in the U.S., in fact, it's what we are in the whole world for the most part, except for even those that are run by knotheads. The people in this world are intelligent enough to discuss things and come up with a solution that's best for everyone. I truly believe that. And if you don't believe that, then all may be lost. It's kind of like we don't have a choice. If we're going to be successful as a society, we need to be in that place where we look at things and determine what we can do to make them better and make a decision that's not going to be negative, is not going to affect others negatively. And if we have a law we don't like, legislate to change it. Just don't break the law. Legislate to change that law. Well, that's it. I'm done. I've run my pie hole for almost an hour now. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. All kinds of places to get the podcast. I mean, golly, where would you go to get the podcast? Of course, the easiest way is just send me an email. jamesstrongshow@hotmail.com. That's what you need to do. Send me an email. Send me your email address, and I will send you the podcast after I publish it, and you can download it and listen to it at your leisure or anywhere you get your podcasts. iTunes, iHeartRadio, FM Player, Facebook, Twitter, TuneIn, Radio Online, the podcast app, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, SoundCloud, Deezer, Podcast Addict, GeoSavan for my friends in India, and of course, Spreaker.com. I just say, hey, Alexa, play the James Strong Show podcast. Or, hey, Alexa, play James Strong Show podcast 225. Comes up. Kind of cool. And of course, Spreaker.com. Who publishes and actually houses the James Strong Show podcasts. Well, that's it. I'm done. Have a good weekend. Happy Father's Day to those of you who are fathers out there. And until next time, this is James Strong saying, adios.